Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Remember when /x/ wasn't all tarot card readings and skinwalkers? Let's take a trip back. In this thread, ghost experiences, I'll start. About 3 years ago, I am 17. Home alone, brother and dad are out for the night. Just got the Xbox One, playing one of the obscure indie games on the market. All of a sudden, I hear footsteps walking up to the front door, thinking nothing of it. Probably my brother or dad. Hear the door open. "Hey, what's up?" I call out from the basement. Nothing. Weird.png. I continue playing video when a tennis ball rolls down the basement stairs. Said tennis ball was in a basket with dog toys across the room from the staircase. The dog is at the boarding service for the weekend, freaking out a little bit. Sit back down again. Some time passes, trying to ignore the stuff that's been happening. All of a sudden, my pack of cigarettes flies off the counter in my basement and hits me in the head. At this point, I'm running out of my house, calling both my dad and brother, telling them to get their asses home ASAP. A few weeks later, we have a priest come after encounters like this persist. 3 years later, and I haven't experienced anything in my house since. My face when. We had other things happen before this, but they were pretty minor and never became potentially harmful. So please, feel free to share your experience down below.
I bought my first house 2 years ago. House built in the early 70s. Find out later, 10 owners in the past 15 years. But why .webm? Tear out old carpet, strip crumpy wallpaper, redo kitchen, other massive projects. Fast forward 1 month, move in time. First night there, Buddy crashes in the guest room, incoming spoopiness, drunk high with Bud, pass out around midnight in my room. Wake up sober as a bird exactly at 3 a.m. Hear a little kid laughing outside the bedroom window. Flashlight engaged, see nothing. Screw it, need sleep. The next morning I woke up, Buddy in the kitchen already. Says he woke up at 3 a.m, heard laughing outside his window. Bedrooms on opposite sides of the house. Explained the same happened to me. Finished talking, the stove turned itself on before our eyes. Nope, out of there. Leave for the day. I have a few more stories if anybody wants to hear them. Nothing ultra crazy, but enough to turn me from a skeptic to believer. Fast forward a few weeks. Just me at home. No animals, no people, just me late at night. Laying down, trying to sleep, hearing footsteps. Quiet, distant at first. Getting louder, closer. Sounds like a little kid. I say hello? Footsteps sound like they stop at the bedroom door. Hallway light comes on. Light switch next to bedroom door in hallway. Footsteps run away, start loud, get quiet as it runs further away. Nope, not looking out there. I'll pay the electric bill. Footsteps again, running to my door. Footsteps stop, light turns off. I'm freaked out at this point. Happens on and off between midnight and 4 a.m. No sleep for me. Doze off around 5 a.m, sleep till 8. Wake up, nothing out of the ordinary. Make coffee. Feel like I'm being watched the whole time. Got a few more, 2 are kind of big. Met a girl off Tinder. Told her about the happenings at my place. Says she is sensitive to that stuff and wants to come over. In like Flynn.rv. She comes over and says nothing seems off to her. Okay, cool, who cares? Her and I are asleep and both wake up to a loud pshh. All my water faucets turned on by themselves at full blast. Thought a pipe burst running to the garage to shut off the incoming water line. Kitchen light was left on. Notice the faucet handle is physically up and turned on. Turn it off, along with the other 3 bathroom faucets in my house. Outside too, it sounds like. Shoes and boxers, all geared up. Turn off all water. The back porch light starts turning on and off rapidly. Not flickering, like some kid pretending to be at a rave. Go inside. She's packed up, dressed and crying. She says she feels something here. Can't stay. Okay, bye. She leaves. Nothing else for a while. One more big one, one more small one. Few weeks later, find subflooring in bathroom has rotted through due to a leaking toilet wax ring. Brother and friend are tradesmen. They come over to help. I'm on my laptop at the dining room table. Get up, go to the fridge, get a drink, come back. Hear metal chains shaking in the kitchen. Look through the doorway, the chandelier is swinging. Not a slight breeze, swinging hard and almost hitting the ceiling on either side. Phone out, record, catch swinging, yell for brother, 1900 square feet house opposite end. He and his buddy are skeptics and sees the chandelier as he comes around the hallway. Oh shit. After toilet is fixed and floor replaced, we sit in the living room. I have a voice recorder for work. Ghost adventures time. Start with basic questions and pauses. Who are you? What do you want? Blah blah. Brother's friend says, threatening the ghost. I start to say, dude, you don't live here with it, WTF. All I get out is, dude. Kitchen pantry with cups swings open, slams against the wall. My favorite coffee cup flies out, shatters. They say, that was weird. Could have been anything though. Brother is now a believer, friend is not. Turn off the voice recorder and listen. No voices, just us and the dish-breaking sequence. Lights have been going on and off randomly. Call my brother's friend, same one as before. He gives me crap for being freaked out, etc. He's an electrician, so he's going to look at my wiring. Ask him if faulty wiring would cause my light switch to physically turn up and down, on and off. He says, nope, no way. I'm explaining that this is happening, and I've seen it. He calls me crazy. Lights were off. Around noon, the big bay window in my living room. Lights turn on, we both look at the switch. Guess what? It's on. Starts to turn on and off rapidly in front of our eyes, just like the back porch did. He mutters something about it being impossible. He goes into the crawl space, says he saw an animal, probably a raccoon that is down there. Oh, maybe he flipped the lights on and off? WTF, how bro? Call the exterminator the next day, guy comes out. Explain that my buddy saw a raccoon. Guy goes under, leaves 10 live traps with bait. Says he didn't see signs of anything, no footprint, etc. But he would check back tomorrow. Guy comes back, says nothing is disturbed. Gives me his 24-hour phone number. Says he will leave them for a week. Added stronger bait too. Says to call if I hear anything that might be the sound of an animal stuck. Week goes by, he comes back. Nothing is there. Weird. Says no proof of anything. No scat, no tracks, no chew marks, no food caches. Replaced all switches in my house. Doesn't happen as often anymore, but on occasion it will.
So has anything else crazy happened recently? Do you just kind of deal with it? Seems like an interesting way to live.
Not really crazy, but one thing did happen a few weeks ago. Long-term girlfriend now lives with me. When I'm asleep, she violently wakes me up around 2 a.m. She's scared. Says something is happening in the kitchen. I sit up and listen. My lower kitchen cabinets make a distinct sound when closed, kind of hollow, and they bounce 2 times before settling down. Hear this over and over, but not uniformly or in perfect repeating sequence. It sounds random. Have 2 dogs now, both in bed with us, both sitting up, staring towards the noise. Little dog crawls under the blanket and starts shivering. Big dog, who has never growled ever, growls. Oh no, Torrent. Turn on the bedroom lamp. Listening, listening, listening. She falls asleep. I cannot, and the hair on my neck is standing up. Not going out there. Stayed awake until I had to get ready for work, 5 a.m. Noise kept going and stopped as soon as my alarm went off. That is the last thing that has happened. Nothing was out of the ordinary in the kitchen when I went out there.
It's not that scary, but it was so damn weird it stuck with me since I was a kid. Be like 4 or 5. Laying in the top bunk bed. Brother below. The hallway is set up so that Mom and Dad's room is first on the left, ours is next on the right, and Grandpa's room is at the end. Both parents' and Grandpa's room doors have some kind of design that make a pretty distinct noise when they open. My parents' room is too tight in the frame, so it makes a sort of pop when it opens. Grandpa's door is too low, so it drags on the carpet heavily when it opens. Everybody but me, bro, sleeps with their door closed because I get spooked when it's closed. I swear all that junk about the doors had a point. Laying in a bunk bed, look toward the open door. The clock says it's like midnight. Everyone's been in bed for a good couple hours. More details. There's a stove light in the kitchen that casts a slight light down the hall. See a figure lean in from my parents' side of the hall, silhouetted by the light. Looks like they're wearing a sock or something on their head. Starts waving at me for a couple seconds. As soon as I sit up in bed, it bolts. No sound of footsteps. It just retreats behind the wall. Cower under the covers till I fall asleep like a real boy. Find out a couple days later a bunch of my dad's pocket knives got stolen. No one knows when.
This one occurred in my room in Indonesia. Indonesians are known for being very superstitious. My room was in the corner of the house closest to the back lawn. I believe it's bull. But it was closest to a tree believed to harbor spirits. B13. Walking into my bedroom after school, putting my bag on the floor and whatnot. Turn to walk into my bathroom. It's opposite to the bedroom door. Standing around in there when I remember I need something from the bedroom. As I turned to walk into my bedroom, I realized I didn't need anything and turned back. So basically, I got a half-second glimpse of my doorway before dismissing the thought of going in. As I turned back to the bathroom, my mind registers the outline of a fully grown human directly in the doorway, less than a meter from my face. Instantly sprint out and GTFO, felt genuine primal flight or flight response. Pretty shaken, but besides that, nothing eventful happens. Neither of my dogs would ever enter my room. They'd tug against their collars to leave. Plus, all friends and myself included have felt an eeriness to it, as well as that being watched feeling.
I guess I'll chime in. I've had 2 mild experiences that I am aware of. In 2007, I was working for our local cable company and at a customer's home for a poor reception complaint. It's in a beautiful house built in the late teens, early 1920s. Her elderly father lives in her basement, which has been converted to a brightly lit suite. So I follow her downstairs and I quickly see the problem. Homeowner, hack job. She goes upstairs and I get to work. I swear suddenly it felt like someone was in this small kitchen with me right behind me in the corner. I spun around because it startled me. Naturally, nothing there. Go back to fixing the cable and the feeling returns. This happens 3 times. It was so omnipresent that I had to stand sideways so I could watch my work and amp, keep an eye on the corner. Strangely, I didn't feel any fear, but I stared long and amp hard at the corner about 6 feet away. The real uncomfortable part is when I had to go upstairs to get a splitter from my van. As I start up the stairs, suddenly I feel like I'm being pursued, and amp instantly lunge up the stairs. It felt like somebody was right on my ass. Calm one moment, near panic the next instant. My heart was racing. Get splitter and return, finish up, again get a pursuit feeling, but less intense. Like I was only followed to the bottom of the stairs and not followed up. I was looking backwards the whole time, huh? Tell the lady everything is fixed and working great. She thanks me, and just before I leave, I asked if anything weird has happened downstairs. She's visibly uncomfortable and says her elderly father has mentioned he thinks there is a ghost down there. I leave. I've been in creepy people's homes, but that was the first home that creeped me out while on the job. My second experience was back in 2009 in a hotel built in the 1890s and owned by Best Western. Again, poor reception call in some rooms. As we're walking down the 3rd floor hallway with a fellow co-worker, I notice that it suddenly feels stuffy, like as if the air is heavy. I made a comment that if I didn't know any better, the place was haunted. Oops! Hotel manager gives me a funny look and the co-worker just shakes his head. The feeling persisted only at the end of that hall and in the last 2 of the 3 rooms we checked. Fixed problem. Proceed outside and around to an electrical room that sits underneath the oldest building. Big, heavy steel door for access swings inward. The room is about 8 by 8 feet in size, single light bulb for illumination, joists visible in the ceiling, and they traveled a long ways into the darkness under the building. This room felt creepy. We both felt it. In fact, he said, if he sees anything out of the ordinary, it's every man for himself. We examine how the cable plant feeds the building and comment on how much it would suck to have to crawl in a space less than 2 feet high and 3 feet wide under the hotel to repair a cable. I'm standing there, the steel door is in my direct view off to the left, a co-worker facing me, when suddenly the steel door swung a good 165 degrees and slammed closed with a bang. No wind, no one even near, no nothing. Damnest thing I've ever seen in my life. We looked at the door for a moment, then one looked at each other. Nope. We practically fought each other to get out first. I gotta say, I found it briefly stressful to go back in and turn the light off and grab out the tool bag. Just before closing and locking it, I showed my coworker, look, no breeze and door jamb is level. His eyes were the size of saucers. I haven't been back. The contract with the cable company hotel expired shortly after.
Excuse me for not green texting these stories. It's just that I hate this format of storytelling. I had quite a lot of spooky occurrences happen to me. I'll convey them in a chronological order. When I was a little kid of no more than 5 years, me and my family lived in an apartment of which we moved out. That place had a bad vibe to it. I never felt safe in it, as if someone was always watching me. I was not the only one who felt discomfort there. My mom reported feeling bad in there as well. The first scary memory that I have from that place was when I was in the living room with my parents one evening. I felt inclined to look at the display window of the closet from close up, so I walked toward it. When I got close enough, I noticed a white face looking back at me. Even though I was scared, I didn't back up or called my parents. I felt hypnotized. I can't remember what happened after that. After we moved out of the apartment, I saw one of the videotapes my father recorded of me and my sister playing in the living room. Everything was normal in the video, but something was wrong in the audio. Over the voices of me and my sister playing, there was a metallic male droning sound. It kept getting louder and louder until the video cuts to another film session. The second scary memory that I have from that apartment is by far the scariest thing that ever happened to me. I was lying awake in my bed one night when suddenly I saw a white head peeking over the side of my bed. The shape of it resembled that of a sheet ghost. The only facial features that I can remember from it were black eyes. The head kept peeping out and then going back to hide under my bed. He just kept repeating this action in total silence. Eventually, I covered myself with the blanket, and I can't remember what happened after that. After I got older, I came across the story of the Flatwoods Monster. As I read about it, I became shocked as to how much the creature described sounded familiar. I even remember reading some eyewitness reports saying that sometimes his head is the only thing visible, just like in my case. Pick related. That's the guy I saw, only without his body. Another weird thing in relation to the story was that I received the exact debunking theory about the creature from some guy I told the story to a long time ago. That it might have been an owl. Strange coincidence, maybe. My mother used to say that at the time there were a lot of UFO reports in our region. My father even has a video recording that he took of a bright light hovering silently in front of our building. After this, a similar event happened to me when I was in kindergarten. I was minding my own business outside when I saw a head with strange facial features peeking over the fence wall and then going back down. Just like the creature that I saw in my bedroom did. This one looked more human though, and it wasn't white. I'm not sure if I was the only one seeing him because I wasn't alone out there. After my 6th birthday, we moved out of that cursed apartment to another apartment in the same city. The new place didn't have a bad vibe to it, but I still had scary things happen to me. Before I convey the things that happened in the apartment we moved to, I will tell you the story of a very peculiar event that happened in the new kindergarten I went to after we moved. There was this kid in my kindergarten that was kind of a weirdo. Nobody hung around with him, and he was pretty much a loner. One day, all of us kids were playing hide and seek in the yard. After a couple of rounds, we suddenly hear someone scream in pain. From the corner of the yard, the weirdo kid comes crawling out, covered in blood, and I mean completely covered in blood, hauling like a lunatic. He didn't seem to have any visible injury on him, just tons of blood. The kindergarten teacher rushed to him and took him somewhere. After he was taken, I realized that not only did we play several rounds without finding him, but also, the place he crawled out of was just a small corner in the yard next to the outer walls of the kindergarten structure. That place was searched through several times, and there was nothing in there that could hurt him like that. We were never told what happened to him, and he returned after a couple of days, refusing to say what went wrong. This was all nice and good, except it happened 3 more times since then. We would all be playing outside when suddenly he would crawl out of there, howling and covered in blood from head to toe. I was in school with him when we got older, and when I asked him regarding it, he would say he doesn't know what I am talking about, but he was visibly upset when I mentioned this. Now onward to the scary things that happened in the new apartment, the one I live in now. When me and my sister were still kids, we used to sleep together in the same room on a double bunk bed. One day I went to sleep on the top bunk, knowing that tomorrow my grandmother would come to visit us. I was pretty excited. I woke up in the middle of the night with the door to our room open and a shadowy figure standing at the entrance. I was convinced that it was my grandmother who came early, and so I called out her name. The figure just kept standing there without moving or replying to me. I then fell back to sleep immediately, as if all of my strength was sucked out of me. When I woke up in the morning, my grandmother didn't arrive yet. This is not the first time I saw what I consider to be a shadow person. After I grew up, I was moved to the room at the end of the corridor. That room had a door leading to a bathroom. One night I woke up to see the door to the bathroom open and a shadowy figure standing at the entrance. I thought it was my mother this time, so I called out her name, but the figure didn't reply. Then I felt again as if the strength was sucked out of me and I fell back to sleep. The third and last time I saw that figure was when I woke up in the middle of the night, lying on the floor with my face down. I was paralyzed and I could sense that the same shadowy figure was standing over me. I can't remember what happened after that and if I woke up on the floor that morning or not. The following story is what I consider to be the second scariest thing that ever happened to me. I was woken up in the middle of the night by the voice of my mother shouting at me from her bedroom, "Stop making loud noises, Anon." As I was trying to understand what was going on, I noticed there was a loud noise coming out from beneath my bed. There were a lot of heavy boxes under there filled with my toys. As a kid, I could barely move them, and what was down there was really going at it at full force, kicking them around. I shouted back at her that it wasn't me. She didn't believe me because she was an asshole. All of a sudden, the noises stopped. I looked toward the bathroom door and I saw a young lady with her back to me wearing a classic Victorian-era pink dress, floating above the ground and moving toward the closed bathroom door. She went through the door, and that is all that there was to it. Never saw that girl again. The last thing that was out of order in this apartment was when I woke up early in the morning to the sound of a man shouting, as if in pain, from what sounded like the hallway. I thought I was imagining it, and I went back to sleep. Next morning, my father asked if I was shouting during the night. The last scary thing that happened to me was when I was with my whole extended family in the apartment of my aunt after my grandmother died. We all heard knocking on the entrance door. It was late at night and we weren't expecting any guests. The knocking wouldn't stop until we opened the door to see there was nothing there. It happened several times during the week following her death. That's all, folks.
Me 19, living with 6 people in a big house. The house was about 100 years old. Not sure about the background of the house besides it being old and was used by junkies a lot. Anyway, I lived there for a month, nothing too strange at first. Fast forward 2 months, we all start to hear things upstairs like footsteps in the one bedroom, but everyone and the dogs would be in the living room, would hear faint whispers. The basement was especially creepy due to having one crappy light. Did my best to stay out of the basement, only did laundry down there. So that goes on all the time for a few months. At about month 6 now, and one morning I was sleeping and no one was home. It was around 9:30, I was dead asleep, and out of nowhere the door started slamming shut. Jump out of bed thinking it's my roommate screwing with me. See no one behind the door. Drop a brick. Avi. Literally noped out of the room downstairs. Freaked out for a few days and slept downstairs. At this point, everyone is hearing and dealing with weird stuff happening to them. One day, 4 of us are upstairs in one bedroom. Try not to talk about the ghost in the house, but it gets brought up. Now the attic room was completely finished, but in the one corner of the room there was this crawl space-like hole. I put a board against it and prop it up with another board. The one roommate was drunk, so he screamed out, "If there's something in the house, move that board," and say some other things to try to get a reaction. Nothing happens for a few minutes. Everyone starts to leave the room. Both boards flew across the room, literally all standing there awestruck. The last weird thing to happen moved out shortly after.
Live in a town of 2,000 people. So small it's actually considered a village instead of a town. Town High School was built in the 1890s and is still used today. Grade school was rebuilt in the 1990s, so moving from 8th grade to high school is a big change in scenery. The school had a lake in front of it when it was first built, but they had a problem with it flooding, so they built a small river through the town in order to drain the lake. I think they did that in the 60s, but that's not important. It was very common in grade school for the teachers to talk about how the high school building was haunted by a ghost named Edgar. As a little kid, it freaked us out, of course. But as we grew older, fewer and fewer of us actually believed in it. During high school orientation, at one point they just turned us loose in the building so that we could explore and find out where all of the classrooms were. Down in the basement, we were checking out the library and found these large picture frames. The frames were hung on things like posters in the store. There are multiple 2-sided frames on hinges, so they kind of flip together. Each frame had the class picture of a graduating class, from 1903 to the present. We had fun finding pictures of parents and relatives to see what they looked like in high school. Small town, almost every kid was the offspring of an alumni. Then we started flipping through all of the old pictures, and a friend stopped us. He said nothing and just pointed at a picture. It was the class of 1917, and written underneath the picture was, "In Memory of Edgar Wary." After looking at the picture closely, we realized that two of the students looked identical. Edgar had a twin brother, Thomas Wary. The next week, we started looking into the books at the town library, not the school library. They had these old super dusty books that had every major news story the town had ever had. Turns out the old tree in front of the high school used to hang out over the lake. One morning, they discovered Edgar hung from the branch of the tree, hanging above the water. Police deemed it a murder, but Thomas didn't want to believe it. He hunted down and murdered 3 people who he thought had killed his twin brother. We went to school the next day and started talking to the superintendent. Once he started talking, all the sense of authority in his voice went away. He told us that what we had discovered had actually happened, and the school tries to keep kids from finding out about it. Tells us it's to keep distractions down. They think if everyone is talking about murders, they won't get their work done, even though these murders happened almost 100 years ago. Fast forward to junior year, I haven't thought about Edgar or Thomas in a while. Got to school earlier than usual, only about 5 or 6 kids in the school before me. See someone in a suit and tie walking down the stairs. None of the teachers ever dressed that nice. I'm on the 2nd floor, watching the person walk from the 3rd floor down the stairs and into the basement, before thinking that he looked out of place yet familiar. I go down the stairs to see who it was, but don't see anybody. The lights in the cafeteria weren't on yet, so all I saw was the light from the vending machines and what was coming through the door to the library. Walk into the library and see an underclassman named Kaylee. Ask her if anyone had come in the last minute. She said she was the only one in there all morning. Walk over to the pictures on the wall and flip to the older pictures. What Edgar and Thomas, and every other boy in their class, looked exactly like what that guy was wearing. Mild nope, and head back upstairs to wait for my friends to get to school. Never tell anyone other than Kaylee what I saw. A small addition, but way creepier than my personal story. Midway through senior year, school assigns a freshman to every senior to be like a helper. Not a chaperone or anything, but like if they don't know where a classroom is. Mine's name was Steven. Steven comes up to me one day and looks pale as a ghost. Says he has to ask me something. Long story short, he had been out late the night before and was walking home around 2 a.m. High school is in the middle of town, so he walked by it on his way home. Said he saw something hanging from the tree and walked down where the lake used to be to check it out. Turned on his phone light and saw a person hanging from the tree. Ran home and woke up his sister, who drove him back to the school. But of course nothing was there when he got there. He was asking me if he should tell anyone, so I told him to talk to the superintendent. I'm not sure if he did or if he ever found out the whole story.
I'm relaying a story from my grandmother, who told it to me exactly once, years ago, and refuses to speak of it ever again. My great-grandmother was a Polish immigrant who came to this country around 1915. She married shortly after, and my grandmother was born in 1922. This story takes place when my grandmother was 9 years old, and my great-uncle was an infant. They lived in Brooklyn. The rest of this story is transcribed from what she told me. It was a cooler summer day, and Bapchia, Polish for grandmother, it's what we all called her, and I were taking your great-uncle to the park a few blocks away. It was a weekday, and folks were at work, so there weren't many people out on the street. We were about a block away from the park on one street, with no one else out, when we saw a little girl walking towards us. She looked about my age, maybe a little older, with black hair. We couldn't see her face because she was looking down at the sidewalk as she walked towards us. The first thing I noticed was that Bapchia straightened up a bit and frowned, like there was something wrong. I started to ask her what was wrong, but a moment or so later I picked up on it too. There was something weird about the girl. I didn't like looking at her. I got this watery feeling in my eyes, and I felt afraid. She kept walking directly towards us. When she was around 30 feet away, Bapchia pushed the stroller at me and told me quietly to cross the street and hurry to the end of the block, and most of all, don't look back. I was very afraid by now, so I did what she said. I waited at the end of the block, nervous as a wreck, waiting for her to come back. Finally, she did, and she was pale as a ghost and scared looking. She was holding onto the crucifix at her neck. I thought she'd been running, She wouldn't tell me what had happened, only that we had to leave. It took me years to get her to tell me what she'd seen that day after I left. She never wanted to talk about it and would yell at me if I brought it up. Finally, one day she did, and she still looked scared to tell it. She told me that after I had crossed the street, the little girl kept walking until she was just a few feet away, and then she stopped. Bapchia stopped too, looking at her. The girl slowly looked up from the ground to stare at Bapchia, who said her face and eyes were like the dead, though she would never explain what that meant. Then the little girl opened her mouth, wide, much, much wider than a human mouth could go, and she kept opening it. It stretched down to her chest, while her eyes stayed locked on Bapchia's. That was when Bapchia broke and ran, crossing the street to my side and hurrying towards me without looking back. After she finished, I wrote it down in its entirety as best I could. My great-grandmother was extremely religious and, according to my grandmother, swore until her dying day that this story was true. My grandmother, though she did not witness the whole thing, was visibly unsettled by the memory. I haven't embellished or altered a thing here. Everything I posted is exactly what she told me.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.
There's also a Rumble archive as a backup,